Welcome back. House members back home this past week, just days after President Trump signed his massive tax and spending bill into law. Democrats turning into the midterms and looking to target several key Republican seats across the country. And that includes Republican Congressman Brian Stile, who joins us now. Hey, Congressman, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
You've been home for the past week. I'm curious what constituents are telling you about the president's big, beautiful bill.
I hear a lot of excitement, also a lot of confusion about what's in the bill. This is about securing the border, about doubling down on the work that President Trump did in the first 6 months, about making sure that we're investing in our military, and about getting our spending under control and removing waste, fraud, and abuse from some essential programs that we're protecting those for those that it was actually designed for.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the Medicaid numbers. Democrats will focus on that as well. The state's Medicaid director says tens of thousands, potentially 60,000 or more, could lose coverage just in terms of some of those new work requirements. Is that the goal here of the legislation?
So let's break down those numbers, because I think that's important to do. In the state of Wisconsin, there's roughly 1.2 million people on Medicaid. Of that, about 130,000 individuals are of working age without young children who are able to work. About half of those currently are working a minimum of 20 hours a week, according to the Governor Evers appointee. We're looking at about roughly 60,000 people who are able-bodied, childless adults in our state who now will have work requirements in place. This should be our focus, to help those individuals get good and better paying jobs. Work requirements across the board are popular in the state because people understand that to lift people up and out of poverty, we know a job is central to that. We have all sorts of exceptions for non-able-bodied working adults to make sure that we're strengthening the program for which it was originally designed for.
The Ag Secretary said this past week that Medicaid recipients facing those work requirements should just replace farm workers who could be deported. That could include here in Wisconsin. Do you agree with that premise?
I think that's a bit of a strange analysis that you just presented there. I think there's a significant number of jobs that are available. Again, the work requirements simply say you need to be even looking for work, volunteering 20 hours a week, or working 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. As you drive around communities here in southeast Wisconsin, I think we see plenty of help wanted signs. Again, it's about getting people back into the workforce and then into good and better paying jobs.
Would you like to see any type of amnesty or amnesty program for farm workers?
I think, one, we need to secure the border. I think President Trump has done a terrific job of that. I think this bill makes an additional investment to make sure that we're permanently securing the U.S.-Mexico border. As we fix the broken illegal immigration system, I think that gives us an opportunity to fix the broken legal immigration system. I do not believe that there should be amnesty, but I think we have a true opportunity to fix the broken legal immigration system now that we're beginning to make real headway on the broken illegal immigration problem.
As we saw last week, Governor Evers signed the state budget overnight, 1:30 in the morning. The concern was so the state could raise the hospital tax assessment to bring in more federal Medicaid dollars before President Trump would sign the federal bill. Senator Johnson has called that approach legalized money laundering. I'm just curious your thoughts on what the state did, even backed by Republicans, to raise that hospital assessment.
What it really shows you is that the Medicaid system nationwide has major and significant flaws in it. It's the flaws that we were trying to address at the federal level. What we're trying to do is actually strengthen the program for those that it was designed for. What we've seen across the country is a lot of gamesmanship inside the Medicaid system. Other states have been really egregious abusers of it. I'll let the state legislator and the governor determine how they're going to operate under the rules of the road that are in front of them. But big picture, I think what it shows the American people is how the Medicaid system has been abused across the country.
Another busy week ahead. Republican Congressman Brian Stile. Congressman, like always, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, honoring a fallen officer.